Hi.
Hi.
How you doing?
Good.
Super duper. We still have yet to figure out what the name of this podcast is, so because we haven't.
I think Team Brown's good.
Team Brown, I like it. We've had like 9 different versions of the podcast name.
Mm.
Do you want to volunteer what those are? What the 9 versions are?
Well, we thought about second chances. We thought about unlimited chances. What else do we think about? Oh,
I said the do-over, and you're not a fan.
That sound like the Hangover. And we thought about shed quarters because it's in the shed, and that's what you call the shed. You call it the shed quarters.
I call this my shed quarters.
I think most people know us as our last name Brown and Team Brown.
Yeah. Why would that make sense, or why is Team Brown a thing? Why do we make Team Brown?
You gave us that name when we got back together. Yeah.
You can explain it?
You want?
All right. No, you go for it.
Well, we were married and then divorced, and then we got remarried 3.5 years later.
Yeah.
And you called us Team Brown because you said we're gonna fight for team now. We're no longer selfish, and we're gonna be a team.
Yeah. So part of our back and forth, and the reason why we care so much about team is because we had been on and off again our whole life. We met when we were 10 and 11 years old. We're 9 and 10 years old, and we fell in love right away. But life was always in the way, right? And so everybody around us saw that we loved each other, but also everybody around us had their own opinions on how that should work and what that should look like, or if that should even look like that at all. And so we came to the table of life together as a relationship, always trying to be together, but always wanting our own thing, kind of from our own perspective. And so we got in our own way quite a bit, but then also our environments got in our way quite a bit. And so back and forth of being on again, off again, boyfriend, girlfriend through our teenage years, and then again sometimes in our 20s. And then we made the commitment to each other to get married, and within like a year, life fell apart and it all got ugly again. And so, but it's because we realized that we were selfish, and we realized that we came to our relationship from a perspective that we saw as kids, right? And what a marriage should look like as kids. And we didn't just choose to be selfless and choose the other person wholeheartedly. And so because of that, it threw all the wrenches, the whole box of wrenches in our relationship. So for us, we care a lot about team because we come to the table now saying like, this is so darn special that we just protect the heck out of this thing. And because of that, what is the outcome of team? What is the outcome of us fighting for team?
So now we've been remarried 9 years, so going on 10, and it's been good. Been really good. God gave us another child, like He promised, and we've been on lots of adventures. We've lived in 3 states and taken a lot of risks together, and yeah, we have a good life now.
Yeah.
And it's totally different than what it was. And we were both broken back then, but now we're different people because every day we feel like we're healing and getting stronger and better and more whole together and becoming one, and not just staying in our own brokenness.
And so part of us wanting to do this is to share that, like, we come from a church world, church backgrounds where we met. And it's also kind of our background, our backstory is that we grew up in church. And so we have a background of faith, and a lot of what colors in the box for us is faith. And, but also a lot of our pain comes from a place where we were at church, right? And a lot of pain comes from around people who were at church, because that was our community and our environment and our ecosystem. And so like we we understand the value of it now because we've been through the dark side of it and we have the light side of it now. And so part of this podcast, the reason why we want to do this is because we wanted to be able to expose other people in the ether, in the internet world, what a marriage looks like, and what maybe people who can be honest about being busted or broken or having places that were just super dark, that it can be okay, like, and you can get through it, and it looks like this on the outside, on the other side of the fence. Some of the busted stuff and some of the broken stuff can lead to something crazy beautiful if you let it. And so we wanted to be able to at least have fun on the podcast and not let it be so dark. This is super downy right now, but it is our reference point. And so, but we wanted to be able to just have fun and laugh and share life and talk about adventure and talk about kids and what it looks like to maybe be in church, but not like deep in the weeds and weird, but also like just living life authentically, living family authentically, living faith authentically. But we wanted to be able to expose people who maybe haven't seen that growing up or haven't seen that in life. We wanted them to be able to see like, oh, that's what that looks like. Oh, it looks cool. Like, okay, I get it. Like, it can look like this. And not that we're perfect, because God knows we're not, but we wanted to at least give people another reference point from maybe a past that they've had that they're like, I know it doesn't look like that, but I want it to look like something else. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we should probably share how we met, because that's kind of happier.
Okay, go for it. This is all you.
Well, so we have different memories, you know, of our childhood. So I'll share what I remember, and then you can share. So I remember meeting you getting on a church van, one of those big white vans in the 90s. I think it was 92 or 93. As I was like 9 years old, going to church camp, kids camp,
Yeah,
and I
that's
remember
correct.
seeing you there, and you had like bleach blonde hair, like white hair, and it was like parted down the middle, and like the Devin Sawa look was really in back then.
It's sexy.
And I fell in love, and I remember saying, "Oh, I just want to marry."
With Devin Sawa or with me?
With you.
Oh, great.
I remember saying, "I really want to marry you one day," and then I had a really bad crush, like love at first sight. And then I had this diary that was scented. It had a little lock on it, and I would write in my diary about you, and I would write Erica Renee Brown, because I really wanted to be your wife one day.
Literally speaking it into existence.
Yeah.
Or writing it into existence. Maybe that should be the name of the podcast. Is Scented Locked Diary.
No.
I think
It's still
it's got a
really
ring
good.
to it.
I don't know what happened to it or where I got it, but it's not
I mean, that's my reference point too, right? My reference point is like we met in church. We met first time we saw each other was whenever we were children, going to kids camp during the summer in Arizona. We lived in Phoenix, and so like we went up to the woods, which is north Arizona area, and spending like 5 days where my mom was your counselor or whatever, and at church camp, and being able to just be like, that girl over there, I like that girl over there, she's super pretty. That's the girl I love. And I remember that feeling that like this is special. Like I've never had this feeling before, and that's the feeling that I have by looking at her. And then I mean, our whole life was the battle of playing cat and mouse with relationship, with like wanting to be together and wanting to be around each other and trying to sneak around and trying to make it happen, and that was our story. So
it really did feel like at times like the Romeo and Juliet story, where we always loved each other and we knew that, but there were things that coming against us that got in the way. But I think now we know why, because for such times this, maybe we do these, and this can help encourage a lot of couples and families, and hopefully restore a lot of relationships, or protect your relationship from getting to where ours went.
yeah,
Because now we can share a lot of like, hey, don't do what we did, because we
Well,
made a lot of mistakes, and learn from us, learn from our mistakes, and we just want to really open our lives and our we have seen so many families get back together through how God has used our story to inspire and encourage them and give hope.
Right.
And so we pray that this, us opening our hearts today and on these videos and podcasts will encourage you.
So, and I think that for us, what we will always fight for is we want to fight for your team. Like we want the world oftentimes, and by the world I don't mean this pejoratively, I mean it like oftentimes the selfish answer is protect your own castle, protect you. And that's not always awesome if you're trying to fight for you and another person to be together, because it's supposed to be a blend. And so if you're just fighting for you, you kind of ignore the other person altogether, and so it's not a great way to fight for team.
Right.
Fighting for you is not a great way to selfishly then fight for team, because like you'll end up finding that the answer of fighting for yourself and trying to protect yourself oftentimes isolates you to where you can't fight for team. And so our answer in this, hopefully there's going to be more of this podcast, but our answer will always be that you really got to think of how can I be selfless, and how can I sacrifice to fight for this thing? You know, for us, that looked different than it's going to look for you guys, but it looked different even what we thought it was going to be for us, right? Like when we were fighting for each other, we had the world telling us, even people in the world of faith telling us like, hey, look, this is the way it needs to look, and this is what we would recommend. And it's like, yeah, but at the same time, you haven't gone through that, and you don't know how I feel about it. And some of their advice was right, but oftentimes their advice was based on a book, or it was based on a theory. And it's like, man, we've lived this thing, and it looks different, and it looks a little different. And it's not to throw shade or be ugly towards family or dishonor anybody in our network, but it's to really say that your marriage is one of the most important things on the planet. Like from our faith perspective, God built family as a metaphor for how he treats us, right? As a husband and a bride, right? And so we believe that family's crazy special, and that this is special. And that's why the devil wants to fight it. And that's why like so often it feels like such a fight to make it a place of peace and happiness and where it makes sense. And it's because there's a lot of attack against it, right? And if you hear chickens in the background, it's because we live on like a mini farm. There's a chicken over here that's like making noise. So I don't know if this is picking up on our mics, but
yeah, probably just laid an egg, or you might hear sheep or goats.
Talk about that. How does city kids from Arizona end up having sheep and goats and chickens and all sorts of stuff?
Yeah, so we never had the desire to have a farm. It was never something we talked about. My only exposure to land growing up was my grandmother had an acre in Nashville. I would go spend the summers with her, and I just remember loving it. I thought it was so beautiful and peaceful, but I never had exposure to animals. I never remembered having like, a dog growing up or a cat, but when we got married and our kids were little, they always were praying for a farm. They just wanted a farm, and every night, like for 2 years, they pray, and God, please give us a farm one day. And so Jeremy and I, we thought, well, they really want this farm. Maybe we should start opening our hearts to God and saying, God, is that what you want for our family? Because we had never thought that direction before. So we started praying, okay, God, if you want us to have a farm one day, then you make the way and provide land and a home and animals and a job transfer, because we knew we weren't going to have a farm in Arizona in the desert and it's hot, and we knew our idea of farm looked different than an Arizona farm.
Yeah.
It looked like green, and it looked like lush and
trees and the pond, like all that kind of, yeah.
It looked
Sure.
different than Arizona, and so we started praying that direction, and we've only lived in the city in Arizona, which was the desert. But God provided, and He gave you a job transfer to Texas, and we literally drew like a 1 hour radius around Houston, and we found a property that was a few acres, and we just started buying animals, blindly in the blind, and don't take me around babies because I
No.
want to bring all the babies home.
That is actually probably a word of wisdom to all dudes. Don't take your wives around baby anything. Like baby children, probably a bad idea. But just generally, things that are young, don't take your wife around,
And
folks.
I had no reference point because I had never raised animals, so
Sure.
of course, I saw these little baby
Yeah, how can you say no?
sheep on Craigslist, and we show up, and it's like, oh, it's so cute, and you think it's gonna stay that size forever. And we bottle fed them, and so they actually like were in our house and laid on the couch with us, and we cuddled them, and we raised them.
And they just stayed that small the whole time. It was awesome. It was super good.
And then they get big, and then they start like ramming heads
Yeah.
and like brushing you and jumping on your cars and eating everything
Yeah.
inside. And it's been a learning experience, but it's been fun.
So people who grow up in country, like that's super funny to think of city kids who come out to your neck of the woods and then have to learn all the stuff you've known your whole life.
Yeah.
But for city kids, like it's an adventure because you don't know unless you just go deep into YouTube, right? Or deep into social media. And we didn't. We were just like, oh, this is cute. Let's buy it and let's figure it out as we go. And so it's literally Green Acres here. We're in the north side of Houston, but we're up in the woods and we have a couple acres and it's awesome. God's provided. We are going to, in efforts to try to save video battery and just see what this test of the first podcast looks like, I'm going to cut it short just to make sure that we didn't run out of memory and space. We're running everything on this this setup that is not a professional setup, as you see, but we're trying to do our best. And so, but we hope that you'll join us for future episodes. We hope to have a name like nailed down and all the stuff. And but we're not trying to make money on this thing. We're just trying to be a light in a dark place. And we're trying to give you another template that says, oh, that it can look like that. It doesn't have to look like this other thing. And we want to bring hope, right? And that's part of what this is. And so this is not, you're probably not going to see like 30-second ads every 10 seconds unless YouTube makes it happen. But this is really meant to show other people that, and even prove to ourselves that like God is crazy faithful. And if you let him be, you know, if you take self out of it and you say, you know what, how can I serve you? And how can we fight the team? You know, God's crazy faithful to the outcome. He honors your commitment to team. And so I think a lot of dudes, sometimes they feel stuck. And it's like, well, what about me? And it's like, man, you fight for it and God will honor it. So we want to at least provide that hope. God bless you guys. Thanks for hanging out with us for a little bit. You have anything, any parting words before we go?
I think another reason we really wanted to give you guys a male perspective, a man's perspective, from a husband, a dad, you know, because a lot of times in marriage, women are really open to sharing their hurt and what they're going through, but not always men. And so hopefully this will encourage even the men in your life or people that you know that are struggling. You guys let us know if this is helpful, and we hope to make more of these for you, just to give back. We've been given so much, and God has restored our family and blessed us, and we just want to give back. So.
Yeah, and part of this started because Erica started a podcast and I got jealous. So that's fair enough. She crushed it in her first 4 podcasts. And I'm like, oh, I want to do that. So no, we're blessed to be able to be here and be a light. So we want to be able to reach out and give back, and love on you guys back. So God bless you guys. Thanks for hanging with us.